Hi, Lisha. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad that you are here today.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Of course. I know you're going to be presenting at the TVI Online Symposium in September, and we'll get into that a little bit. But first and foremost, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself to the people who are listening.
Okay, my name's Lisha. I'm a TVI from Pennsylvania. I've been doing this for, wow, 25 plus years. I started out thinking I was going to be a classroom teacher, maybe in a second grade, and then I went to Kutztown University, which has an amazing vision program for teachers who want to teach the visually impaired. So I got dual certified, and that kind of led me on the road that I am now. I became a teacher of the visually impaired at Overbrook School for the Blind in Philly. And then once I started having children and I wanted to work a little less, I was lucky enough to start working as an itinerant at the Montgomery County IU. There I did early intervention for 18 years. And I created a vision classroom for visually impaired preschoolers. I did assessments. I also did itinerant work. And I continued on that until the road led me to what I specialize in now, which is CVI, cortical cerebral vision impairment. And I had some amazing students that taught me and their families so much. So I still consider myself a CVI expert, but I'm learning every day and I'm very humble about that. And currently, for the past 2 years, I have been content manager for PASDA Literacy, which is an online website that is through Perkins School for the Blind in Boston and Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired. So I do that part time. I call it my side hustle, as well as carry a full caseload for K through 12th grade at Montgomery County IU.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm exhausted just saying it all.
You know what I'm finding is that the people in our field, and I'm going to say the women in our field, the men are also amazing. But right
Yeah.
now, I've just been recording with women. Man, that we just take on so much.
We do because there's so much to do. And as women, I think, you brought up the women aspect. It's hard to say no when you see there's a need and you're like, I could do that. I could fix that. I can change that. I can help with that. So finding that balance maybe is, another question we'll have later in the podcast about creating a healthy balance so that you are living your best life while helping others.
Oh my gosh. Speaking right to my soul, girlfriend, because I struggle with the same thing. And I think I resonate a lot with your story because I feel like I'm very much the same. Like, I want to do all of the things. Right now, we have two conferences. We also have another membership that we run as well. And like, I cannot give up my students because there's nobody in town to take them.
Right.
Could you imagine? Like, I could not imagine
Right.
saying no to my students and saying, "Oh,
I mean,
sorry."
that's what fuels us, the kids, right? So, when you have all these other avenues that will kind of grow your audience, I guess to say, so that you can help as many people as possible. When it comes down to it, we are teachers to our core, and we just want to connect with students.
Yes, exactly. Those are my most fun days is when
Exactly.
I'm teaching. It's also personally the days when I'm not just sitting behind a computer screen because you're right, I am
Mhm.
in it for that connection and I love getting to chat
Yeah.
with you guys and getting to host the conferences. But I hear so
Mhm.
much of that in you where you are doing a lot and you not only have a full-time caseload, you're the content manager for one of the biggest publications in our field, and it's not just a publication that does like scientific reviews, but it has to actually be scientific but appeal to the masses. And so that's not an easy job to find that balance. And you're a mom and trying to be a good person in the world. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. It's ebbs and flows. There's days, hours, weeks, whatever you want to call it, where you're like, I got this. And then there's other days where you're like, okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to bed. I'm done. So yeah, you just take it, like you've been talking about, one step at a time. There's going to be good moments and bad moments, but as long as you have that vision to keep going and know your purpose, then I think that helps a lot on those bad days.
what is your vision then? And what is your purpose?
Yeah, so even though the road changes, and I always say you never know what's around the corner, and that's exciting. I feel like as a teacher of the visually impaired, we have a lot of wonderful opportunities to reach others in ways that typical classroom teachers can't. What I like to do is just balance my life in a way that brings me joy. And like just sitting here talking with you, it's a summer day. I could, do something that would be fun, and but this to me is fun. This connection with you and others that'll listen to it, that fuels me as well, because it's showing me that other people are out there like me, and that kind of energizes me to know, okay, I'm not the only one out there who finds joy and peace in helping others.
I love what you just said. Having that community and the connections to know that you're not the only one who finds joy in helping others. Because in this world, a lot of people find much more joy in money or corporate life. And I think as teachers, we're a little different. At least I am with my corporate friends, where we're
Right.
both working really hard. I will,
Yeah.
they work hard physically, sometimes harder than I can imagine. Where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not staying up until 2 a.m. to turn in a deliverable.
Right.
That'll be
Right.
fine. But they don't really understand how I can just have so much heart in what I'm
Yeah.
doing, and
Yeah.
how I really don't have a corporate ladder that I want to climb. I just want to touch as many lives as possible.
Yeah, I get that. And I also get the aspect that I want to make a good living too. So as a teacher who's been doing it a long while, what I can say to someone starting out that, has the lower teacher paycheck, and they're thinking, wow, I am looking at my, college friends that are starting to make their way in the world and make that money. And yes, I have a heart that, is really motivated by helping others and having that human connection. But as teachers, we also have to, balance that too with advocating for what we deserve. And, how often are we sitting on the floor on a Saturday doing lesson plans or projects just because we want to do a really good job and not necessarily getting paid for it? So I also want to advocate for sticking up for yourself a little bit when it comes to those, salaries and what a living wage should look like. I feel that in Pennsylvania, teachers and administrators have done a really good job working together to try to keep that salary going. And, we talked about my side hustle at PASDA Literacy. So there's little projects along the way that you could also supplement. I know a lot of new TVIs are working ESY, the extended school year this summer, to make some more money. But I want to be clear that I do this because I love it, and I would do it for free if I was independently wealthy. But you said I have a family and I want to put my kids through college. I want a nice car. I want to be proud of the paycheck I bring home. So I don't want that to get lost either. One, we're driven by our students, our families, our love of teaching. But two, I do this so that I can bring home a paycheck so my family can be comfortable and secure. So don't lose sight of that when an administrator says, oh, you have such a good heart, I'm sure you'll do that and get that done by Monday. Stick up for yourself a little bit, because you're not only helping yourself, you are not being selfish. You're helping others behind you so that they want to come into this field. Because if we're making a quarter, half of what our college friends are making, the best and the brightest might not come into this field. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there as well.
Thank you for
Yeah.
saying all of that. I don't
Yeah.
think that it's said enough, and I know that I've personally been ostracized and, like, called into meetings with department heads when I refused to do something for free when my counterpart was getting paid for it. And
Exactly.
it's very real, this indoctrination of you have to, like, I don't do it for the money.
Right. Well, and I think that, we talk about women's sports and male sports and the pay differences. And like you said in the beginning, it's a very women heavy field. So we've been, I mean, at least I have in my generation, I'm Generation X, we were taught to work really hard and be good girls and help others. So that's great. And I'm totally doing that, obviously. But also, we deserve to be paid for our talents. I have a master's degree plus, 45 credits, and I worked really hard to get to where I am. And we deserve to support each other to say, you absolutely deserve a really good paycheck for working that hard. So again, if you want the best and the brightest in the field, you have to be willing to pay for the best and the brightest. So you can't have it both ways. Not everybody is going to be a Saint Teresa and say, I'm going to just do it and live in a tent.
Yeah, and I think that if we can separate out the indoctrination of I don't do it for the money, as in people who need to be fed are bad
Yeah,
people.
yeah. You know, it goes back to taking care of yourself as well. If my I have 3 kids, if my kids can't get the things that they need but from me, not just being clothed and fed, but they have goals of their own, and that's why I work as well. If I can't provide that for them, what's going to happen? I'm going to begrudgingly find a job that will pay me enough to support my family. So keeping that in mind, I go both sides. There are days that I tutor for free because there's a family in need, and I would never ask them for money because that is my way of giving back, but that is my choice. When I work full time and you want me to have this enormous caseload and juggle it all, then I deserve a really nice paycheck for that because I've put 25 years in and I'm going to do it really well. So you have to be willing to pay for it.
I absolutely agree with you there. And I think we also do a disservice by stepping over our own boundaries with
Hmm.
money, yes, and also with our time. I
Oh,
think,
there. Yeah.
yeah. What was so interesting? I was just at a conference with a bunch of CEOs of like major organizations in our field, and it was the same conversation of we can't get people into the field, but we can't get in because people in the field are miserable. I mean, that's totally true. I don't think we have to eat lunch in our cars, even if
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
small thing that we advocate for. Is no, I will be eating my lunch sitting down somewhere, not in my car, and I'm not going to take that transition time as my lunch. Just that one small step,
Yeah.
if everybody did that, would be huge. And I'm not a great example because I end up working on emails and then I throw chicken nuggets in a bag and I go.
Yeah, exactly. We've all been there, but that's right. Just I think what you're saying is, my wheels are turning in my head a little bit about, maybe the beginning of the school year, teachers kind of decide that where their boundaries are and what are maybe 2 or 3 little goals for themselves to create those boundaries. And maybe for someone, it'll be, I'm not going to, quickly shove chicken nuggets down my throat while I'm driving so that I can answer these 3 emails before I see my next student. Or, maybe at 6 o'clock every evening, I put my laptop and my work phone or, my emails down, and it's just my family time now and it can wait till tomorrow. There's no urgency that requires us at 10 o'clock at night to answer an email. So we're all guilty of it, but then maybe we have to kind of stick to our own personal guns and say this in the long run will make me be a better teacher because I'm providing these boundaries so that I can be the best I can be.
Yeah. What are some boundaries that you have? Can I ask?
Oh, absolutely. I don't get hung up. I don't get as stressed if I feel like if we're watching TV as a family, if I open my laptop and type away, that doesn't stress me out. Or, I mentioned on a Saturday, if I'm sitting on the floor on a Saturday, it's probably to do a crafty type lesson that I enjoy doing. So, somebody might be a painter. I love to craft. So I'll craft with a purpose and do that on a Saturday. So those are things that I do out of pleasure, not out of need and necessity. Yeah, I'm happy to check it off my list, but it's something I enjoy doing. Those are important. Boundaries for me are being very careful who I give my cell phone number to. Personal cell phone numbers is a slippery slope. If I feel that a family would need me more than I would think during a school day, I say, can you just shoot me an email? So be careful of how they can contact you. Not having family on my personal Instagram or Facebook page. I have a professional one where they can learn all my little tips and tricks. And sometimes I'll post a fun picture of a family event, but it's keeping it separate because they don't need me to be their friend. They need me to be their teacher, their support system for their child and their child's education. So they don't need to know what's going on in my life unless it's something cute like, oh, today's my daughter's birthday. But I've learned it the hard way to create those boundaries with families because it's better for both sides.
I have almost the same boundaries. Mine are a little bit stricter, but I also don't give out my personal cell phone. I have a Google number that's actually attached to my personal email, but I don't give out my personal email. That way, that goes in a separate folder completely. It's a separate work folder. And I can decide with Google numbers, you can change your greeting just literally like by click like create one and then click it, and then you can decide when it's going to ring to you. And then what I end up doing is on breaks I might take that app completely off. I still have access to everything and everybody, but it's only on the computer, so I can call them on the computer.
That is such valuable information. And I hope who's ever listening to this really thinks that maybe I should be doing that, because we're so guilty of, holding our phone at, family or social events, and we see it and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to quick answer this so it's off my mind. But if we're not seeing it and we're tucking it away till the next work day, or maybe the Sunday evening where you feel like you want to get your ducks in a row, you're creating those avenues so that you're at peace of mind. And so I love that idea.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same page of like, I have to create space for my family. And when it's family time, it's family time. And because I have employees and my employees work all around the world, I also had to learn the hard way. Parents can often get in touch with me after their work day
Sure.
because it's easier
Yeah,
for them. And I
get it.
completely get
Yeah.
that. I do. But on the days that I have my children, from the moment I start making dinner, I'm done
Nice.
because they know that for them here in our house, they're allowed to be outside in the neighborhood. And I need to be able to like always know where they are or have,
Right.
my little
Yeah, you got your
mommy
mommy
antenna
hat on.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I never know what kids are going to walk in the door or anything like that. And I also really love what you're talking about, like getting your ducks in a row on a Sunday when it's quiet, when I don't have my kids.
Yeah. When they go to bed and you're like, okay, gonna load it up, get ready.
I just like a warm cup of coffee, like quiet music, and setting myself up for the week just feels so luxurious.
Yeah, it centers me. It really does. So jumping in Monday without that would be hard for me.
Yeah, I do it every other Monday. When I have my kids, if there's a time where they're like on screens or something and I can step away, I just can't really get down to like the deep level thinking when I have loud noises or
Right.
children
Yep.
around. So I think you and I have very similar boundaries within that, which is really cool to see. And it's cool to see somebody with the same values because I respect you so much as a professional
Thank you.
and you have these amazing boundaries. And it's probably because of the boundaries that you're so good at both of your jobs.
Well, and honestly, these boundaries weren't always there. They were and they weren't. Things get muddy sometimes. So I am by no means a perfect example of boundaries. In fact, there's probably a couple of families that are like, really, Leisha? Because so, we'll giggle together. Everything is a learning experience. And, you find out what works for you day by day and week by week, and also year by year. And like, I love the school calendar because a lot of times you're like a fresh start, even though you have all of these connections and some of the same students, you're like, how am I going to navigate this if it wasn't working for me last year?
And the whole world, if you think about it, runs on cycles.
For sure.
And there's always a time for the fertile void. And I think that it's really important that all teachers or anybody in any sort of creative role, which I don't think that we as teachers honor how creative our role is as much.
Oh,
Like, think about it.
totally creative. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't expect TV actors to, I mean, as much as I would have loved like Modern Family when it was on, the fact that they took a summer break really made me mad. I did not love that.
Well, it makes a lot of families mad that we're on summer break.
I know, I
But yeah,
know.
how necessary for anybody in any field to take a step back and find things that bring them joy outside of their career, do a reset. I cannot tell you how excited I am just to go through all the stuff that was in the trunk of my car, which I have not had time to do yet, just to kind of reset and see where I'm at and, kind of take stock. And those are things I do that just center me. So I'm looking for a rainy, summer day where I can kind of see where all my file folders are and, what kind of shape they're in and how we can kind of get geared up for, mid-August.
And you'll probably take that as it comes organically and as it feels good to you.
Yes.
So, with your roles, because you have so much going on, do you find that you rest a lot more during the summer, or are you still busy because you have your kids?
So my kids are older now, so that's helped a lot. It sounds like you have little ones running around, coming in and out of the house. So mine are older. My youngest is 19. So I've taken on a different role as, a mom of older kids. That has helped me tremendously because they don't need me the same way. So my life has gotten significantly easier. So what did I do? I took on the role as content manager for Visually Literacy. But for me, I'm done with my master's degree. I don't have to take classes on nights and weekends to continue my education. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not always learning and taking classes sometimes, but there is no longer that pressure of I have to finish this for my master's. So that I've now checked that off my box. My kids are older, check that off my box. So now when I became content manager, I was ready for it in my family life. So now I'm able to do that in a way. I call it like getting a master's degree, but now it's a part-time job. So I'm learning, I'm getting paid to learn, and I'm meeting these incredible people around the world. So I absolutely consider it an honor to be the content manager for Paths to Literacy, and I do not take it lightly. And when you mentioned that what you love about Paths to Literacy, and by no means do I feel like I am, Paths to Literacy, there was 10 years, and then there's a whole group of people still very involved in Paths to Literacy. But what I love about Paths to Literacy is the same as what you said. It is hands-on content that teachers, families, support staff can take and use in the field now. And I am such a hands-on teacher. I am a no BS teacher. I want something quick, easy. Give me that goal, give me that resource, give me that form, let me get it done, let me get it into the hands of the people that need it. So when there is great research out there, or when there is a TBI doing amazing work and wants to share a lesson or an idea, I want it to be, boom, I see it, I love it. What can I do to incorporate it into my teaching?
How can people get in touch with you, or if they wanted to write an article? Can you walk us through how that works?
Absolutely. So if you go on to Paths to Literacy homepage on the website and go to the bottom, there's my contact information. And there's also search on the top right corner. There is a search bar that you submit content or create content for Paths to Literacy. So there's an article, and there's also an email for me, Lisha.Yochimowitz@perkins.org. And you can email me and say, hey, I have this great idea. This is what I'm thinking. And I will talk you through the steps and send you the link. Or you can look at the link before you contact me and think, is this really for me? I don't want anybody to be scared, because there are so many amazing people out there who have so many great ideas, and we would love to connect them with other people, because that's how I learn. That's how most people learn. We learn from our peers. We learn from our students. We learn from our community. So I will help walk you through it. I ask that there are no copyright issues. I ask that if you take any photos, we'll send you a form to make sure that we have permission to take photos of students or families. I love photos that, kind of come from the back or show hands, but not necessarily show the faces, because you never know with online platforms where those faces will go. So just contact me. Tell me your idea. Some people send me the whole thing right away because they're like, let's go. And other people need a little bit more, and I don't like to say hand holding like it's a bad thing, need a little bit more guidance. And then once they've done it once or twice, they might do it from time to time, or they might be a one and done. What I love is if you are published on Paths to Literacy, we have author pages. So I will set you up with an author page, and then I link all your articles so that if anybody ever wants to find you on Paths to Literacy, they can just put your name in and your articles, and your bio pops up. And I think that's always a nice feather in someone's cap, to get published and to be on Paths to Literacy, which is so world known in the world of the vision. So you can also, do that. And then once you've done that, I give you a certificate for continuing ed credits. You get 2 hours of continuing ed credits for your efforts, but also I'll ask you if you'd like me to forward your article to your supervisor or anyone out there. So if you're shy and you didn't want to tell your boss, hey, I did this really cool article about this science lesson that I did with my student who's learning Braille. I'm happy to do that for you. And that kind of exposes you or sends you out into the universe a little bit more and gets your name out there.
One of the things that I find so incredible about this whole process is although you are an expert in CVI, and I do kind of want to get into that, but the people that we're talking to right now may or may not feel like they are experts. And I really want to make sure that anybody listening or watching understands that you are the expert in your specific area. It may not be a big one like CVI. It might be, an expert in solving one specific problem. But I find that so many amazing teachers have imposter syndrome because we sometimes in this field tend to get squashed on if we have new ideas by other people. But more so, it's just we're scared of we have more of a fear that we're going to not that it actually happened.
Putting your neck out there and saying, "Ooh, look what I did." It's scary. I like what you said, that just having one little idea, you might be problem solving with your team or just with yourself with an individual student and going, "Oh, I really need to figure out a way to get this content or to help them achieve this goal or this objective. And I'm just struggling and I'm going to try this, that, or the other thing." And, you figure it out and you're so excited and you're like, hold on, maybe this could help someone else. So you're right. It doesn't have to be this big, grandiose thing that we're all like in awe of, like, how are we ever going to solve this problem? It's those little bits of wisdom that you gain along the way. And I have first and second year teachers that are very tech savvy and love, to show us older folks what they're doing. It's kind of a collaboration. We all bring something to the table, even if we're a little inexperienced, even if we feel a little insecure. And that's kind of why I'm here, because if you email me and like, okay, like I haven't been doing this long, but this is really cool what I did with my student. Would you be willing to help me post it? I can steer you in the right direction. I can say, you know what, we need to make this lesson a little meatier for others. Or I love what you did. Could you make a form for it? And then we can have people have access to that. So I'm never going to make someone look bad because I don't want paths to literacy look bad. So if it's an idea that maybe not be well-rounded when you come to me, I'm going to help you find a way to make it more well-rounded for others to view, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense. When I first started authoring, one thing that really helped me was understanding that I don't need to be the one and only voice. I just need to join the conversation.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
That was exactly. I'll never claim to know all the answers. What I knew 5 years ago is different than what I know today. And I'm doing the best I can, just like we all are. And I have yet to see someone come to me when I stick my neck out there to show others what I'm doing, ill intent. If somebody, questions me or, hey, did you try it this way? It's always coming from a place of best practice. It doesn't hurt my feelings to learn from others. And if I make a mistake, you just own it and go, oh yeah, I should have done it that way. That way would have been way better. So we're all here at a place of learning, really.
Always, always. And the way that I will just attribute it, like the thing that I tell myself that allows me to to like have a podcast and a YouTube channel and put myself out there on the daily on Instagram and different places. And I have to share a lot of my different ideas is really just remembering that if you watch me fail, that means that you're not going to make the same mistake. And
Yeah.
if I have to be that person, that's okay. But that's just me. When I was starting out, it was so hard to finally get over that hump or like hit submit on the application for a presentation.
Yeah.
It still is for me. I
It,
all this year have
same,
watched so many
same.
conferences pass by and I'm like, I had so many great ideas. I was just so scared. And like, why? Yeah.
Yeah. And my suggestion to someone out there who's listening to this and feeling the same way and scared to take that leap of faith that they can do it is lean on others. Ask your mentor, ask a peer, ask someone that you know has done it. Could you help me through this? Could we present together the first time? Let them be the lead and you take the step back, or you're the lead and they're supporting you. So many people would love to help you. And we're in the field for a reason, to be surrounded by people with like minds who want to move forward in the vision field to help as many people as possible. So lean on others. There is not an article that I do not put out there that I don't have someone check my work. I have an editor. I'm not a great speller. Thank goodness for technology. I've never been a great speller. So luckily that little red line shows up underneath it. But also sometimes I have, run on sentences, or sometimes it could be worded differently, or sometimes it could confuse someone. So I always have people I trust and know have my best interest at heart. Just check it for me, and then I check their stuff too. So it's a give and take. So ask for help.
You're going back to community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
I want to switch gears a little bit and shed a light on your expertise and ask how you got into honing in on CVI. Like, what was there a student that you had? Did you have like an experience? What was that?
Okay. So here's the thing. People think if you're a teacher of the visually impaired, you're the expert. And we are, but we're not an expert in every facet of our field. And that is something that only people who are in our field understand. You cannot be a Braille expert and a technology expert and early intervention expert and a CVI expert. You just cannot do it all. And I'm lucky enough in Pennsylvania that we have 14 people, vision teachers on our staff, and we know who is the technology person. We got like two or three. We know who's the O&M expert. We know who, the Braille lady is. So we rely on each other for guidance when we know who is better than we are in a certain area. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try or stretch our brains or, do it ourselves. But I became, I guess, expert in CVI because I was in early intervention. I created a preschool classroom with a colleague. I was told at the time that children with brain-based vision impairments, which is what cortical cerebral vision impairment is, are the low kids, the kids that will be in life skills classes, the kids that will never be readers. That's what I was told. Well, guess what, folks? There's a whole spectrum, and that hit me in the face. When I had my early intervention vision classroom, there were students in there that were going to go to kindergarten classrooms with, I hate to say it, but typical peers, and they had CVI. And that is what got me interested in the CVI world, because my one student was on what Dr. Roman would call phase 2, beginning phase 3 on the CVI range that she developed. And they were very, very functional. You might not notice it right away. And then all of a sudden you're like, hold on a second. What are they doing over there? They can't see that. It was very subtle. So luckily, the mother and the grandmother, who was a reading specialist, hooked up with Dr. Roman. And then I was like, well, I can't be left out. I'm this kid's teacher. I got to learn everything. So I started to train under Dr. Roman. I went to Perkins School for the Blind for some training. I learned as much as I could. And then that one student made me see that there is just not one category of CVI. There is a whole realm of students out there who need these adaptations, who need to be identified, who need this support. And I think I just caught it on the cuff when it was about to just explode, and I went along for the ride. And then I met up with some other students who needed me much, much more than typical everyday students, and I just immersed myself in it. It grabbed me in a way I was never expecting, and here I am.
That is amazing. So, how do you incorporate your expertise? You still have a W-2 CVI position. Do they give you all the students with CVI?
Yeah, so no, they don't give me all the students with these CBI because it's just too hard to drive everywhere. And I'm lucky enough to have other great members who are very knowledgeable and have training in CVI. And that's one great thing about our supervisor at Montgomery County IU, my supervisor, Jill. She makes sure we all are as well-rounded as we can be and gets us the training that we need. And if there's something out there, we either get the training into where we are, or we train each other, or someone will go to a conference and we come back and bring the information. So no, I'm not the only person that does students with CVI, because 1 in 30 students will be identified with CVI, and not all of them need a vision teacher. There's just not enough of us to go around there, and that's a whole other conversation. But what we do is I support my fellow TVIs. If they have a CVI student and they're unsure of what to do or where to go, or what resources we should get for them, I help support them with that student. And then after a while, they're on their way and they're fine. But if there's what I call heavy hitters, students who are really, really in need of a CVI teacher who has years of experience, a lot of times they'll go, hey, we need to give Lisha this one, or there's a couple other on my team that we could give that to, because they know it'd just be easier all around for the family, the student, and the teacher in order to get what they need in there. So it just depends. I think a lot of the evaluations are coming to me when we have transitioning kids and it's a CVI heavy student. Then I will do the assessment, and then we can go from there and assess their needs and see who would be the best fit for that child.
I can see that. I can see that. And I'm glad that you clarified that just because you're the expert, you don't get all of the students, because that would be a
No, no. I
lot.
mean, like, if I got a kid who was like Braille calculus in 10th grade, I would cry a little,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean I couldn't do it. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't like rise to the occasion, So we kind of have to always advocate for a good caseload, be open and honest when you're feeling overwhelmed, and helping each other. And if somebody, has a student that they're struggling with, can I help? Can I take it over? Can I support? And they do the same for me. So I'm never bored. I'm always learning. And, come back to me 5 years from now and I'd be like, that Braille calculus thing I was like saying, I hope I never get. Well, I got it and I'm fine. Like, you just kind of take it one chunk at a time, or as you're saying, one step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And girl, all the time, I knew you were gonna come back to this. Community. Like, if you are the expert and you are taking a leadership role within your team about CVI, I'm sure that the Braille expert, the
Mhm.
technology expert, they're all, the ECI expert,
Fill in
they're
the
all doing
blanks.
the
Yeah.
same. Yes, I love that.
Otherwise, we're like we're off we're out of kilter. It's not even. I can't have a full caseload and the end all be all for CVI on my team. And I'm lucky enough to have a team of other TVIs. There are people alone out there doing it all. That's the person I worry about, because you don't have that support system to say, I see that you're overwhelmed. And we said we want to do it all. We want to help everybody. But if we are stretched too thin, we're going to break and we're not helpful to anybody. And that's why we have to advocate for ourselves and our students.
Absolutely. Well, I was gonna ask how you guys set up your team culture. Can you go into that? And then I also want to hear if you have ideas for people to advocate. I feel like we could talk for forever, Lisha.
Yeah.
You're so cool.
Oh,
How did your team build the culture of taking leadership and sharing it? But it seems like, how kids with a one of those, like, big parachutes, a PE, right? You each pull on the parachute the same amount, and that's what makes it work. Whereas if one of you guys didn't pull your weight, it wouldn't work as well, and it kinda makes me think of that because it seems like you have a really even and lovely team. But that is a lot of
good analogy.
yeah, it's a lot of culture building. How did you do that?
Yeah, well, it's certainly not perfect. And there are others that you'll lean on more than another person, or you might have a work buddy that you might like commiserate with or ask for help more than another person. But what I like about where I work is there is support already scaffolded into place through administration. So if you are a new TVI coming in, whether you've been teaching 10 years, 2 years, 20 years, you get a mentor to kind of guide you through the paperwork, through the deadlines, through this is how we do it here. Oh, that's school district. Let me tell you how they like it done. So you have that built in place that the administrators have done for us. So then you already have a go-to person, and they pair you up with somebody that is a good TVI, is that it's really going to help and support you along the way. So when you have to ask a silly question, you can go, okay, Michael, I'm sorry, I got to ask a silly question, but I can't find that form that you gave me twice. Can you just help me out for a minute? So that is already built in place. And then once your year's up, those people don't go away. We're still around. So then, you get a few years under your belt, and then you're helping the younger staff or the new staff come in, so that we're always kind of assessing where everybody's at. What I like is we, throughout the year, create programs for families to gather. And we also create opportunities for TVIs throughout the area to gather. And that is huge because that helps us understand where we are as a team. Somebody might be having a really hard year on the family side. And if we're aware of that, then we can kind of say, hey, I got this about. That doesn't mean I'm going to do it forever. So you kind of meet each other where you are at that moment, year in time, and kind of support each other that way. You could look at me and say, "Oh my gosh, she's got it together. She's got her caseload down. She's got, I still show up at the wrong school sometimes. I still get an email like, "Hey, you never gave me that stuff for the IEP that's due tomorrow." So we're human and doing the best we can. And I think we all come to each other like that. Like, I'm trying my best, I'm having a hard week, or just being open and honest with each other. And knowing that if I'm trying my best, it might not be the best that you can do, but I'm trying my best, then I'm not going to fault you for it. So I don't know. It's human nature. You're just trying to figure it out. And if you create a culture of resentment or bitterness or like, ugh, why is my caseload so much heavier than this person's caseload? It's not healthy for yourself and it's not healthy for the culture that you're in. And that's why we need to have open and honest conversations with each other in a place of like wanting to help ourselves and our fellow teammates. So just, it's all about intent is I guess what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and it sounds like leaning into empathy as well. Brené Brown talks a lot
Yeah.
about it in all of her leadership books, which I would recommend to anybody. All teachers are leaders in and of ourselves, whether or not we have somebody working under us or not. But it kind of seems like that's how you guys do it. Okay, going on to the next thing that you had brought up earlier, which was advocating. And you've mentioned the need to advocate. What are some ways that you have advocated in the past that have worked for you?
Do you mean advocating for myself, for
Mhm.
teachers, or
For
students?
yourself.
For myself, I think the older I get, the less shy I am. So when I was in my 20s, I was scared of people looking at me like maybe she doesn't know what she's doing, or maybe she's not doing a good job if she asks for help, or if she's struggling with a certain case, student. Or but the older I get, the more I realize like, no, I've been through enough. I need to be open and honest with what I'm feeling because no one's going to help me or, give me some problem solving ideas if I don't vocalize what I'm going through. So I think I'm at a point where people know I can do it. I've done a good job. I've proved myself. So now if I'm asking for help, or if I'm asking for a lighter caseload, or if I'm asking for a little extra time to do something, there's a reason. And I don't mind bringing that up again. And I haven't had to because I have a really good supervisor that I love, Jill Christopher. But if there's a supervisor that you're struggling with or they're not understanding your needs, maybe bounce it off of a peer that you really gel with and trust, that you can be a little more real with. And then after you've talked it out, then plan a meeting with your supervisor, plan a meeting with a principal that you're have struggling with things going on in their school. Bounce it off your supervisor, get their advice. And then I like that my husband says solve problems, don't create them. So how could I solve my problem and make my life better and advocate for myself? So let's say I have too many kids on my caseload and I want to give one of my elementary schools away to another TVI. I come to my supervisor. I said, listen, Wednesday afternoon is jammed for me. I can't get all these kids in. I am struggling and not meeting their needs and I am stressed out. Is there any way I can give this to someone else? Anybody else have a hole in their schedule? And that would free up for this, this, and this. If not, maybe we could do it this way and we could try this and this, and this. So I like to kind of give solutions or ideas on how to solve problems so that I'm not just venting. If I'm venting to a supervisor, if I'm venting to a colleague, if I'm venting about a principal at a school, I'm not solving any problems. I'm just, talking. I'm just complaining. That's not solving problems. So I think the best way to advocate for yourself is to help solve the problem by one, asking for help, and then two, trying to come up with some solutions.
Girl, you need to do a whole presentation just on this stuff.
Really?
Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I think we have an issue within our field of the younger people, and I'll say, like, even my generation not taking leadership roles
Yes.
and I think, again, you're leaning on community, you're advocating, all of those are leadership qualities. And I'm thinking about the people who might be contract. Like, I'm contract. As I love what I do, I can see that I would struggle so much more with this if this were my first few years
Oh,
because
yeah.
there's no staff meetings for you to go
Oh,
to for them to teach you how to like work the system.
yes.
There's no support. A lot of times my bosses may or may not answer my emails, most of the time don't. And I have systems set up in place that I set up in place prior because I know how things work. But I also, if they say, hey, we need this one document from ASPED or Frontline, then I can be like, okay, I can pull it up, or I can just ask and then they'll tell me how to get it. But if I didn't have that,
Yeah.
it'd be really hard if I didn't understand how to handle behaviors, or if I didn't have my own experiences from the decade plus of working coming in, then that would be really hard. And if I didn't have anybody that I could ask.
Yeah, you just sit there crying in front of your computer. You really would, because, something that would take you 20 minutes might take you 2 hours because you just don't know how to do it. And that's not fair. It's not fair to yourself. Like I had a completely new caseload this past year. It was eye-opening because I had my teacher skills in place, but I'm like, I don't know how to open an email in this school district. What do you mean they're on a different platform than I am for IEP writer? Like that was a struggle. And I said, I couldn't imagine being 22, 3 years old, having a brand new caseload and I can't even find a form. Like, so
Yeah.
it's real and you absolutely need help. And when you said, you reach out to people, you email them and you don't hear from them and you're like, oh gosh, no, I got to be the squeaky wheel. Be the squeaky wheel in a lovely, pleasant way. Hey, I'm sorry to bug you again, but I just need a quick answer and so I can move along. Yeah,
Yes, and if we can teach ourselves, and I'm talking to my past self from
exactly.
almost
Yeah.
20 years ago, to be the squeaky wheel before we get mad.
Yeah.
And to understand, to learn when people have crossed our boundaries, to feel that within ourselves and to be able to express what our needs are and not what they did wrong.
Right.
Like, here are my needs. This
Perfect.
is this
Yes.
is what's happening. And what you said, come with a solution.
Yeah.
And when we can learn how to have those crucial conversations, it just changes the game. And for me, it took me many years of getting it wrong, of like griping at people
Yeah.
or maybe saying the wrong thing or sending a super long email that they weren't going to read in
Exactly. Yeah.
2010. They're for sure not reading
Yeah,
now.
exactly what you're saying. I completely agree with it. And I think if people are able to get that early on, that might stop them from getting teacher burnout. And look, teacher burnout is a lot of different ways. Like teacher burnout is like, I'm so excited this summer, or I need a personal day off. Those are little teacher burnouts, but teacher burnouts where you are literally a puddle on the floor saying, I love my job and I have to leave it because it's like mentally killing me. So taking those little steps along the way so that you're not so frustrated that you can't do it anymore is really what I would love to see happen because we don't want to lose some really good teachers.
100%. Did you know that 50% of teachers quit within the first 5 years?
I didn't know it was 50%, but that makes me sad. That makes me sad because when I got into teaching, it was everybody loved teaching. It was really hard to get into the field, and now we can't find teachers. So, what happened? What happened? How can we solve the problem?
And how can we solve the problem without going back to, I think older generations didn't have a heart, like stronger work ethic, but they were just willing to put up with more BS from their employers.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm really excited about what the next 5 years will bring in education because the brick and mortar schools are not the only schools anymore. So there's lots of all of this exciting online learning going on. And teachers don't have to be full time teachers, they can be part time contracted teachers. So, and it's an exciting time to be a teacher.
I'm really excited for it. And I think that we're seeing the institution of education that was developed specifically for capitalism by business owners. We're seeing that crumble and it needs to crumble. But what I think is going to happen is I thought it was gonna happen during the pandemic, and it didn't. We kinda, like, got ourselves back up, and, we've been trying to chug along, and it's not working. I think the new people who do come into this profession are really gonna be the change makers, and if you look, these are the same generation that, like, stood up in Parkland, Florida. You know, it was the students who did it. Those people are becoming professionals now, and I get goosebumps. I'm, like, so excited.
I did too. Yeah, when you said that, I'm like, oh, did the air condition turn on? Like, yeah, I'm excited for them too to come up, and I'll be cheering them on all the way, and I will be, mentoring them and telling them that I'm glad they're here, because just because we did it this way doesn't mean it needs to continue. I think that the focus that we've always had as special education teachers was individualized instruction and meeting the needs of the individual child. And I love that that's just blossoming for every single child. It's not about sitting there and listening to the content and taking a test. It's about actually learning the content in a way that you can receive the content and just become the best and brightest individual that you can be. So that to me is really exciting to see that taking place.
Me too. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap up. I feel like I could talk to you for forever. Can you give us one piece of advice to help our community to take one step forward being better teachers?
I think if we just go back to our conversations about helping each other along the way and being open and honest about our needs as a teacher, just supporting what we need to be the best and the brightest. But then when we feel that our cup is full, that we can also help others fill their cups. And then when all our cups are filled, we can give everything that we want to give our students and their families. So to take a step forward, and what my goal for this coming school year is just to be cognizant of where I am every day. And there's going to be those good days and bad days, and not to overanalyze and think about it. You just do the best you can where you are at that moment in time, and don't beat yourself up about it. Like we said, when we're reflecting about who we were, we can't go back. We're here, we're right now, and let's learn from that and move on.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I can't wait to learn from you at the TVI symposium this year, and I
Oh,
can't
thank
wait
you. Yeah, I'm
for
excited.
me too.
Yeah, tell everybody again when it is. It's September.
September 19th and 20th, 2024 is
Yep.
live. But as always, if you can't make it live, which we really want you there because the community is right there. Like if you are a contract and you're wondering where your community is, they are in this room. And I created this room specifically for us. And it is just the most dedicated people show up, which is so fun because it's made for people who can't go to conferences.
Exactly.
It's really like
Because we're too busy.
yes, yes. Well, I made it for myself because I was like, I can't leave. My
Aw.
kids are
Well,
19 months
thank you for
apart.
doing that.
I
It's
love
an
it.
amazing platform that's going to really connect a lot of people.
Absolutely. So that's where your people are. If you want higher level conversations, if you're just starting out, or even if you've been in the field for 30 years, it's literally a Zoom link. You just click it and it'll pop up and it'll all work for you. So I can't wait to learn from you all about CBI and different ideas. I know we'll be able to take it into the next year. That's going to be so fun. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for just being who you are.
My pleasure. Oh, thank you. It was really great speaking with you, and I hope people who are listening get something out of it. Take something and use it.
Yes, just one thing. It doesn't have to be all of it.
No.
Amazing.
All right. Well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.